Hello and welcome to Barbara's podcast. This is the show for women, all about health, nutrition, and wellness. It's the show that will empower you and inspire you to create a healthier lifestyle.
Hello and welcome. I'm Barbara Carafocus, and I'm very, very excited to introduce Sandy Sembler, who is a feminine embodiment expert. Welcome, Sandy.
Hello, good to see you.
Yeah, same here. Well, Sandy, can you share with our audience the inspiration behind developing SakredShe and how it helps women rediscover their essence and unlock their potential?
Yes.
I'm very curious.
Yeah, thank you. It's so, if you would have told me, 10 years ago that this would be my mission in life, I would have thought you were crazy, because I was on a mission I was working with a lot of women back then, like around the world, helping them launch their businesses and really step into their power. But I would not have actually thought that I would be talking about femininity at all back then. In fact, I was very detached from that. And 10 years ago, I had an intervention with Tony Robbins. If you know, he's a motivational speaker. And I was at one of his events. And it was a 4-hour, him in my face, basically pointing out that I was, a successful businesswoman, not so successful in my personal relationships, with men, including probably the relationship with my son at the time. And he really pointed out that it wasn't that I was didn't love men. It was really out of trauma, and that it made me really hold pause and go, what's going on? I had left an abusive marriage a couple years before and had done a lot of therapy, and I thought that I had healed it. I didn't understand that I was still operating out of a lot of childhood patterning. And so what that did is I took a dive into the world of understanding embodiment outside of cognitive therapy, traveling around the world, studying under teachers, because I didn't understand someone like myself who was very versed in understanding, wanting to learn, and how am I showing up this way? And then I stepped back and I realized all these women that I was helping, they were really starting to earn income and really creating some balance in their life, especially for mothers like myself back then, and a single mom at the time, is that many of them actually were burned out, and they weren't actually necessarily they weren't fulfilled. They may have been happy, but they weren't fulfilled in their life. And that's when the masculine and feminine came in, when I started studying about the essences themselves, realizing that we actually have the masculine and the feminine inside of us, and that it's a matter of learning how to harmonize the two, stepping into our emotions, giving ourselves permission to feel all the feelings, and understanding that there's ways and practices we can learn to embody so they don't consume us. You know what I'm saying?
Women living in a modern lifestyle, trying to hold a career, a family. I think being our masculine energy comes out, and we don't give much attention to, having our feminine side.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Well, I tell you, it's interesting too, Barbara, and I actually love how you phrase that, because so many people think femininity is flocking through the garden, right? Or drinking a fruity drink with an umbrella in it, something like that. But, it's actually really more about being in the moment. It's about actually, like when I'm drinking my bubble water, can I actually experience even the bubbles in my water? When I was getting dressed this morning, you're thinking about, like, how do I want, your audience to feel at the end of this, right? How do they want to feel? And then stepping into that and having the intentionality, which is actually a masculine trait. Mothering, since a lot of your audience is mothers out there, whether they work outside the home, or their work is primarily within the home. The truth is that any time that we're tasking, any time that we are directing, any time that we are, honey, did you tie your shoes? Honey, did you do your homework? Babe, did you pay that electricity bill? Whenever we're directing, we are in the masculine, planning a party in the masculine. The key is, so mothering itself is actually quite masculine, but it's the art of the nurturing side of us, the intuition that we have, the fact that we can actually be you and I talking here, and perhaps we're figuring out, what are we going to cook for dinner? I have to meet my friend at 5. Did I kiss my husband goodbye? Did I turn the iron off? That's the gift of the feminine energy, is that we're able to multitask, and that is somewhat gender specific. The energies themselves are not, and I know that we gave your audience the quiz for free to be able to take so they can assess themselves. It's not gender specific. When I did this test, years ago, when I had my intervention with Tony, I definitely tested masculine, but I definitely don't now. But I tell you, the great way to think about it is, like, even in the way you and I are looking at each other now on the computer screen, there's these squares. The square itself is the masculine container. What you and I do within our own little squares is actually quite feminine. It's the art form of who we are. And so for me, when I'm working with women, of all ages, helping them see that they actually don't have to just be masculine at work, or while they're tasking with their children or what have you. It's actually more about, how do you bring it in those mundane moments, even when we're washing dishes? How can we bring fun and play and art form into those moments? And also the flip side is that if we're feeling sad, we give ourselves permission to even feel sad, knowing that within 90 seconds or so, we could be feeling something else. And I think that permission alone, to give ourselves permission to feel what we feel, is the first step to really understanding that our femininity is actually always bubbling within. It lives within us all the time. It's not something we have to put on like a cloak, right?
Yeah. No, absolutely. I agree with you. It is within us. It's just finding moments where we can express it. And sometimes, as busy women, we don't express it enough. I think, yeah.
We don't, but I'll give you a little tip right now. I practice, and I call them practices. The women that work with me, and I have a lot of free, tips and practices on Instagram. You just have to pop on and see me. But it's in the moment, like even right now, if your audience would, take a second, obviously if you're driving, one hand on the wheel, but I mean, to be able to even slow down and even feel the leather of your steering wheel, right? To even be able to slow down and maybe even put your hand on your thigh and gently rub your thigh. Even using the 5 senses. The 5 senses will immediately drop you into your body. And I think that the key is with women, whether you've just had a baby, you're pregnant, or I've just recently on the other side of menopause, and I can tell you that's definitely a time when you're like, what's going on within my body? When I started going through perimenopause and then now in the middle of menopause, talking about your body boycotting you and turning against you, it felt like. So being able to tap into that innate wisdom that already lives within us, because our body is always keeping score. Our body is always acknowledging us. Our body is always allowing us to be able to step into a greater truth, because it is truth. And I've studied under some really great embodiment teachers that have studied trauma, and trauma doesn't have to just be a big T. Even giving birth is a form of trauma, right? And so there's little micro moments we can heal that. So those moments of bringing it in, it has to be an awareness. I'll share a story with you that maybe your audience will really relate to. When I first started doing this work, I didn't realize how. Let me back up. When we feel an emotion for more than 90 seconds, it is proven that we have actually become addicted to that emotion if it happens repeatedly, because generally emotion doesn't live within our psyche for more than 90 seconds, period. It just can't do it. Now, if we continue to pick that feeling back up, whether it be joy or sadness or despair or anxiety or whatever it is, it's because we've actually gotten somewhat, our system is enjoying it in some ways. That's how people can get addicted to their problems. That's why people feel good when they come together and they're commiserating about how badly they don't love their job or their husband, or they're bitching about their kids or something. But we also, on the flip side, can really get addicted to joy. So when I started doing this work, one of my teachers, pointed out to me, "Hey, Sandy, I think you're kind of addicted to being disappointed. I think you're kind of addicted to having your heart broken." And I'm like, what? No. Well, it's something you talk about a lot. It gives you a lot of value because I go study how not to have a broken heart. It gave me a lot of purpose. You see what I'm saying? And so it's how we can get addicted to our problems. Now, they gave me a practice, and I know after working with thousands of women around the world of all ages, 19 to 80 something, one of the first emotions that I find women have a hard time embodying is just unabashed childlike joy. Just joy. So they gave me a skipping practice. Like literally, here I was, a 40-something-year-old woman. I had to skip in public for 10 minutes a day. In public. And I'm seeing you giggle because exactly, like it didn't matter how sad I was or how upset I was with my man, or my son or whatever. I'm like, all right, because it's hard to skip and be in a bad mood, right? And after 30 days of that, I mean, even watching your body, what I'm telling you, it lights you up, and you're not even the one out there skipping in front of everybody in public, right? So it was so interesting though, girl, because I was like, wow, what it does to the nervous system, remember, our brain wants to keep us safe and alive. It does not give one iota if we're happy. And so if I had been brokenhearted, again, I need to say this, the relationship I was in when I met Tony, we broke up like there after that event. So I was a little brokenhearted. I was hurting. And I also realized that had become a habit, and it was keeping me safe and protected. It was keeping me in my masculine, because the masculine energy is what protects us. It's the mama bear energy. It's like, don't you dare mess with my kid. What do you mean we have to hold him back? Stop it. Let's go. Or what do you mean I have this diagnosis at the doctor? Like, let me go do some more research for the second opinion. That's the masculine, period. Now, the intuition inside, that's like, wait a minute. What do you mean? The intuition is the feminine. The action itself is truly the masculine. So it's interesting how they harmonize. But yeah, so the practice itself, going back to that, I realized that the little girl inside of me, some people call it your inner child. I like to call her my little girl, and I've named her. Her name is Simone. Like, I literally have conversations with her, Barbara. Like, even when I'm agreeing to go on a podcast, it's like, what do you think? Does this sound good to you? And it sounds so weird and silly. But I realized I had left her behind many, many years ago. And when I got reacquainted with her, I literally imagined that she was sitting beside me. Literally imagined, because I know the little girl inside of us needs protecting. The little girl inside of us actually already knows what her body needs, right? She knows what turns her on. She knows what excites her. And most of us have walked away from her. So that's always the first, and for some reason I'm very emotional about that today. It really speaks to me, because it does not matter how old a woman is. Generally, that's one of the first emotions that they can't tap into naturally. And that's something that God gives us. Without happiness is conditional, joy is not. Yeah.
Well, you sort of speak about retraining the conscious mind through scientifically proven techniques. Could you give our listeners a glimpse into how these methods replace limiting beliefs and pave the way for a revitalized way of being?
Yeah. Oh, I love your questions. And we spoke to that actually with that last comment, because what it does is that repetition is the mother of skill. How we do anything is how we do everything. We practice piano, we practice yoga, we practice basketball. We have to practice training this computer up here that only wants to make us safe and happy, that it's okay to even feel anger, right? To even feel whatever we want to feel, joy as well. And what that does is it will almost force us to overcome limiting beliefs. It will, because once we do it enough and on repetition, it trains our body that we're not going to die. And I know that sounds so extreme, and it is, because if we didn't have this thing turned on, we all would be fumbling, bumbling idiots. However, it is proven, right, that we can literally, the body itself can literally walk the mind. And so that's why, in meditation, and meditation, by the way, doesn't just have to be sitting here, crisscross applesauce, channeling the divine. You could actually do that through dance. You can do that through skipping. And so we use in the SakredShe Method, we actually use a lot of different practices that will allow you, to your point before, to immediately go, how can I bring in more joy? How can I let myself feel this immense grief that I'm feeling right now, even if I'm in carpool line? And again, a lot of women like, well, what if I fall apart? I can't get myself back together. I promise you, you'll be able to get yourself back together, because what happens is you're going to practice this. Your masculine will literally husband yourself to be able to go, hey, babe, I've got you. You go ahead and give yourself a good old cry. I'll be right here. And so you literally witness yourself in that moment. And so we have this term in SakredShe called husbanding yourself, where you learn, or you could say midwifing yourself if that feels uncomfortable for some people. You midwife yourself into giving yourself permission to love yourself. And the feminine wants to be seen, heard, understood, and feel safe. If we don't, our energy will close. You'll notice our bodies don't move as much. We are conserving energy because the masculine is there to protect and provide, right? And so, again, in relationship, we'll put it to relationship, whoever's the more feminine being, because this works with same-sex relationships, whoever's the more feminine being, if she or he is not feeling more seen, heard, understood, and feeling safe, they will then probably nag, complain, criticize in order to get the other person to see them. How many of us have picked a fight with our partner because we want more energy from them? We want them to pay attention to us. Not a good strategy, but just like me, everything I know, I still do it to this day. And the thing is that, I know we're not here to talk about partnership, but when my husband and I work with partners and even our own partnership, you learn each other's attachment styles, and then you know how to love each other better. So that's a whole nother conversation, but feel free to ask me questions about that. But even with friendships, sisterhood is everything. And I find too, I'll drop this in, that when I started doing this work, even though I had great girlfriends, I didn't realize how much I didn't really like women that were super feminine, women that were airy and fairy and, just move their body a lot, and they were happy all the time. I was like, what is wrong with them? Because, right? I did, but you know why? Because listen, anything that triggers us is a great invitation to dig deeper. And after I started doing this work, I realized that I was actually a little jealous. I had a sister wound that came from a mother wound, right? And within SakredShe, we heal those things. We heal the father wound and the sister wound and the mama wound. But I didn't realize how much I was actually jealous of a woman who was very in touch with who she was. And I don't just mean her sensuality. So many people think the feminine is, and all sexy. No. The feminine is actually doing what we're doing right here, being vulnerable. You're asking me questions that actually let me know that you studied my work, which makes me feel seen and heard and understood. And I feel safe sharing with your audience, because if you took the time, this is about awareness, right? This is about awareness. You took the time to study, some things that Kelsey, my assistant, sent you, then that shows that you care about me, but you also mama bear, you husband, you midwife your audience. And so I just want to compliment you woman to woman and say, I really honor you for that. And thank you, because it actually really makes me feel safe to share all the things. It's not easy to come on and go, yeah, I had an intervention with Tony Robbins. He completely castrated me. I became, on at the event, and my relationship broke up. Let's let the world hear that. Thank you for giving me a safe platform to do that. I really want to say thank you. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you.
We all want to attract, love, or to be in more loving relationships, or to revitalize our, personal and business relationships. How would you advise that? Well, with regards to our work or money?
Yeah. Great question.
And
Yeah, great
sorry.
question. No, that's okay. I'll keep it to for in regards to your question about money and business, but it really, again, it works on both fronts. It's about tapping into that intuition and also tapping into your desires. Again, what is it that you really, really desire? And I like to use these questions at the end of the day. Yeah, and this is also with your personal life, but how do you want to feel at the end of the day? Right? How do you want to love? And then how do you want to actually, be seen by others at the end of the day? And so those, knowing that you're going to ask yourself those questions at the end of the day will actually automatically have you show up differently. About money itself, I personally, the feminine itself is about receivership. Are you able to receive? Whenever, by the way, kudos to you. When I gave you that compliment, you received it. You're like, my pleasure. I always invite people to say, instead of like, oh, no problem. You're like, no, you owned it, Barbara. You're like, yes, I did that. My pleasure, right? But so many women would be like, oh, no, it was no big deal. And, you're like, no. We do that, by the way, the feminine, because we want to belong. And we think that if we're braggadocious, well, yeah, my pleasure, or I receive that someone may not like it. So it's primal in here that we want to fit in. So I want to honor you, the queen in you, like, hello, kudos to you. But again, the receiving, if we can't even receive a compliment, do you think the universe is going to give us loads of money, right? And loads of opportunity? We're always being tested to see, can we actually appreciate and show gratitude for what it is that we even have, even in those micro moments. So money itself is feminine, right? How we actually go about getting it is very masculine. Does that make sense?
Yeah. No, it does make sense. So if someone did want to work with you, how would you go about it?
Yeah, I love that question. Thank you. First off, feel free to do the quiz that you're going to offer them as well. But I'm on all the things, sandysembler.com. Instagram is a great way to tap in. I also have a free Facebook group that you can just tap into, SakredShe Society, which I believe is going to be in your show notes. And, I have a sisterhood. My signature group is a sisterhood group where we meet online, and it's a 5-month program. That is where women from all ages come together. And I actually personally interview everyone. I have one-on-one mentorship. I also have various online studies you can do that are lower price points. But there's a lot of free content online. And just the more women we can have tapping into their emotions and giving themselves permission to feel, to heal, the better it's going to be. So I'm always open just to having a conversation. So please feel free to reach out in a DM or what have you. But those are great ways to check me out for sure.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you, Sandy. I loved your last statement that, to give ourselves permission to heal,
Yeah,
and
feel. Listen, we were not born here to suffer. That's for sure. Suffering is a choice, and I appreciate that. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to share this and put this out there in the world. I really appreciate you.
I appreciate you too.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, have a beautiful day. Thank you, Barbara.
You too. You too.
Yeah.
Thanks for listening to Barbara's podcast. Don't forget to sign up for our newsletter or e-courses. Celebrate life, and see you at the next episode.